Holy Bible reading to request divine union, Theosis part 124. We continue with Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 27. Many have sinned to make a profit, and he who seeks riches will turn away his eyes, as a stake will be driven tightly between fitting stones, so sin will be wedged between selling and buying. If a man does not hold steadfastly to the fear of the Lord, his house will soon be overturned. Tested by reason. When a sieve is shaken, the refuse remains, so a man's filth remains in the way he reasons. As a furnace tests a potter's vessels, so the test of a man is in the way he reasons. As fruit reveals how a tree is cultivated, so a man's reasoning process reveals his heart. Do not praise a man before he reveals the way he reasons, for this is the way a man is tested. If you pursue righteousness, you will attain it, and it will be put on like a glorious robe. As birds flock with their own kind, so also truth will return to those who practice it. As a lion lies in wait for his prey, so sin lies in wait for those who do wrong. Speaking wisely. The talk of a godly man is always wise, but a fool changes like the moon. Among senseless men, limit your time. Instead, spend it with men of understanding. The talk of fools is offensive, and they laugh at the lewdness of sin. Speech filled with swearing will make one's hair stand on end, and quarreling will make one stop his ears. The quarreling of the arrogant leads to bloodshed, and their abusive language is hard on the ears. He who reveals secrets destroys his credibility. He will not find a friend for life. Love your friend and be trustworthy with him, but if you reveal his secrets, do not pursue him closely. For as surely as a man has destroyed his enemy, so you have destroyed the friendship of your neighbor. As you might release a bird from your hand, so you have let your neighbor go, and you will not catch him. Do not pursue him, for he has withdrawn far away, and has escaped like a deer from a snare. For a wound can be bandaged and an insult forgiven, but anyone who reveals secrets is without hope. He who winks with his eye plots evil deeds, and no one can draw him away from them. His speech will be sweet in your presence, and he will marvel at your words. But later his speech will distort what you said, and he will cause trouble with your words. I hate many things, but none in comparison to him, and the Lord will hate him. Consequences of sin. He who throws a stone into the air throws it on his head, and a treacherous blow will distribute wounds. He who digs a pit will fall into it, and he who sets a snare will be caught in it. He who does evil things will have it rolled back on him, and he will not know what hit him. Mockery and abuse come back on the arrogant man, and vengeance lies in wait for him like a lion. Those who rejoice at the fall of the godly will be caught in a trap, and pain will consume them before their death. Anger and wrath, these are also abominations, and a sinful man shall possess both. Chapter 28. He who seeks revenge will find it from the Lord, and he will surely punish his sins. Showing mercy. Forgive a wrong done to you by your neighbor, and your sins will be pardoned when you pray. Can a man preserve wrath against his neighbor and still seek healing from the Lord? Can he show no mercy towards a man like himself and still beg God for mercy for himself? If he, being flesh, keeps his anger continually, who will atone for his sins? Remember the end of your life and cease from enmity. Remember destruction and death, and stand fast in the commandments. Remember the commandments and do not vent your wrath against your neighbor. Remember the covenant of the Most High and overlook faults. Cease quarreling and evil talk. Refrain from quarreling and you will decrease your sins. For a man who is hot-tempered will kindle quarreling, and a sinful man will trouble his friends. And among those who live in peace he will inject unfriendliness. The heat of a fire will be kindled according to the amount of wood. So also the heat of a fire will be kindled according to the obstinacy of quarreling. According to the strength of a man, so his anger shall be, and according to his wealth he will increase his wrath. A haste to quarrel kindles a fire, and a vigorous quarrel sheds blood. If you blow on a spark, it will kindle a fire, but if you spit on it, it will quench. Yet both come out of your mouth. Curse a slanderous and deceitful man, for he has destroyed many who were at peace. Slander has unsettled many, and scattered them from nation to nation. and it has destroyed strong cities and overturned the houses of great men. Slander has driven away a courageous woman and robbed them of their labors. He who devotes himself to slander will not find rest, nor shall he dwell in quietness. The blow from a whip causes a wound, but a blow from the tongue breaks bones. Many have fallen by the edge of the sword, but not so many as those who have fallen because of the tongue. Blessed is a man who is sheltered from it, who has not passed through the anger of the tongue, who does not drag its yoke, and is not bound by its chains, for its yoke is a yoke of iron, and its chains are chains of bronze. Its death is an evil death, and Hades is preferable to it. An evil tongue will not prevail over the godly, and they will not be burned in its flame. Those who forsake the Lord will fall into it, and among them it will be kindled, and it will not be quenched. It will set upon them like a lion, and like a leopard it will mangle them. See that you fence in your possessions with thorns, lock up your silver and gold, make balances and scales for your words, and bar and bolt the door of your mouth. Beware lest you make a slip with your tongue, lest you fall victim before him who lies in wait. Chapter 29. Loans and gifts. He who shows mercy will lend to his neighbor, and he who makes him strong with a helping hand keeps the commandments. Lend to your neighbor in the time of his need, and when you borrow, repay your neighbor on time. Keep your word and be trustworthy with him, and on every occasion you will find what you need. Many men, supposing a loan is like a windfall, cause trouble to those who help them. He will kiss his lender's hand until he receives a loan, and to get his neighbor's money he will lower his voice, but at the time of repayment he will put it off, and repay only with words of indifference, and blame the times. If the lender is firm with him, he will barely get back half the loan, and will consider it as a windfall. If the borrower does not repay anything, he has robbed him of his money, and needlessly made him an enemy. The lender will then repay him with curses and insults, and dishonor instead of glory. Many men, not because they are evil, have refused to lend, and have become afraid of being needlessly robbed. However, be patient with a man of humble circumstances, and do not keep him waiting for your alms. Because of the commandment, help a poor man, and in his need, do not turn him away empty. Lose your money for the sake of a brother and friend. Do not let it rust under a stone and be lost. Lay up your treasure according to the commandments of the Most High, for this will profit you more than gold. Store alms in your storerooms, and they will deliver you from all affliction. More than a mighty shield and better than a strong spear, almsgiving will fight for you against your enemy. A good man will go surety for his neighbor, but a man that has lost his sense of shame will forsake him. Do not forget the kindness his surety has done for you, for he has given his life for you. A sinner will overthrow the good things of his surety, and the ungrateful man will forsake his deliverer on purpose. Suretyship has destroyed many prosperous men, and tossed them about like waves of the sea. Suretyship has driven influential men from their homes, and they have wandered among foreign nations. The sinner who chances upon suretyship and the man who pursues profit-taking will fall into judgment. Help your neighbor according to your ability, but watch out for yourself lest you fall. The principle of life is water, bread, and clothing, and the house that offers privacy. The life of a poor man under a shelter of logs is better than great food in another man's house. Be content with little or much, and you will not hear your guest insulted. Going from house to house is a bad way to live, and where you are visiting, you dare not open your mouth. You will entertain guests and give drink to the ungrateful, and besides this you will hear bitter words. Come here, stranger, set the table, and if you have any food at hand, feed me. Get out, stranger, somebody more important is here. My brother has come as my guest, I need my house. These things are hard for a sensible man to take, the rebuke of a household and the abuse of a creditor. Chapter 30, Raising Children. The man who loves his son will chasten him often, so he may rejoice in him in his latter years. He who disciplines his son will profit by him and boast of him among acquaintances. The man who teaches his son will make his enemy jealous and will rejoice exceedingly over him among friends. When his father dies, it is as though he is not dead, for he left behind one like himself. While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him, and when he died, he was not grieved. Before his enemies he left behind an avenger, and to his friends one who repays favors. He who spoils his son will bandage his wounds, and at every cry his heart will ache. A horse not broken turns out to be stubborn, and a son allowed to run wild turns out to be headstrong. Pamper a child, and he will frighten you. Play with him, and he will grieve you. Do not laugh with him, lest you suffer with him, and gnash your teeth over him at last. Do not give him authority while he is young. Bruise his ribs when he is young, lest he become stubborn and disobey you. Discipline your son and work with him, so he will not embarrass you with his behavior. Good health. A poor man with good health is better off than a rich man afflicted in his body. Health and vigor are better than all gold, and a strong body with immense wealth. There are no riches greater than health of body, and there is no gladness above joy of heart. Death is better than a wretched life, and eternal rest is better than chronic sickness. Good things set out before a closed mouth are like offerings of food put on a grave. That what use is an offering of fruit to an idol? For it can neither eat nor smell. So is a man afflicted by the Lord. He sees with his eyes and groans like a eunuch embracing a virgin. Gladness of heart. Do not give yourself over to sorrow, and do not distress yourself deliberately. Gladness of heart is the life of man, and rejoicing by a man lengthens his life. Love your soul and comfort your heart, and put sorrow far away from you, for sorrow has destroyed many, and there is no profit in it. Envy and anger will shorten your days, and worry will bring premature old age. A man with a good and cheerful heart will pay attention to the food he eats. Chapter 31. Be wise with wealth. Losing sleep over wealth wastes away the body, and anxiety about wealth removes sleep. Sleepless anxiety will drive away slumber, and severe illness makes an end to sleep. A rich man labors to gather money, and when he rests he fills himself with his luxuries. A poor man labors to make a meager living, and when he rests he becomes needy. He who loves gold will not be called righteous, and he who pursues profit will be led astray by it. Many are driven to calamity for the sake of gold, and their destruction has met them face to face. There is a stumbling block for those possessed by it, and every senseless man will be trapped by it. Blessed is a rich man who is found blameless and does not chase after gold. Who is he? And we shall call him blessed. For he has worked wonders among the people, his people, who has been tested by it and found perfect. He has ground for boasting. Who was able to transgress but did not transgress? Who was able to commit evil but did not do it? His good things will be strengthened, and the assembly will talk of his almsgiving. Food and drink. Are you seated at table with a great man? Do not gluttonize, and do not say, how much food there is upon your table. Remember that a greedy eye is a vice. What has been created worse than the eye? Therefore it sheds tears on every face. Do not stretch out your hand for everything you see, and do not crowd another at the dish. Understand the things of your neighbor by your own, and in every matter be considerate. Eat what is set before you like a human being, and do not devour your food, lest you be despised. Be the first to stop eating for the sake of discipline, and do not be greedy so as not to cause offense. And if you are seated in a large group of people, do not reach out your hand before they do. How small an amount is sufficient for a man with discipline, and he does not grasp for breath on his bed. He does not gasp for breath on his bed. Healthy sleep depends on moderate eating, and he rises early and in good spirits. But the distress of sleeplessness, nausea, and indigestion are with the glutton, and if you are stuffed with food, get up in the middle of the meal and stop eating. Listen to me, my child, and do not disregard me, and you will find my words to be important. In all your ways be prepared, and no sickness will overtake you. Lips will bless a man generous with his food, and their witness to his goodness is trustworthy. A city will grumble against a man stingy with his food, and their witness to his stinginess is accurate. Do not get your courage from wine, for wine has destroyed many men. As a furnace tests steel in the tempering process, so wine tests hearts of the quarrels of the arrogant. Wine is like life to man if you drink it in moderation. What is life without wine? For it was created to give gladness to men. Wine drunk at the proper time and with temperance is joyfulness of heart and gladness of soul. Drinking too much wine is bitterness of soul, with irritation and occasion for stumbling and falling. Drunkenness increases the anger of a senseless man to his own heart, reducing his strength and adding to his wounds. Do not rebuke your neighbor at a wine party, and do not despise him when he is enjoying himself. Do not speak a word of insult against him, do not afflict him by making demands of him. Chapter 32, Hosting a Banquet. Did they appoint you as a leader of the banquet? Do not exalt yourself. Among them, be as one of them. Take care of them, and only then be seated. Then, having fulfilled all your duties, take your place, that you may make merry for their sake, and receive a crown because of your orderly behavior. Speak, O elder, for this is fitting for you to do so, with accurate knowledge, but do not interrupt the music. Where there is entertainment, do not pour out talk, and do not display your cleverness at the wrong time. A concert of music at a banquet of wine is like a seal of ruby in a gold ornament. A seal of emerald on a gold setting is the melody of music with delicious wine. Speak, young men, if there is need of you, but no more than twice, and only if you are asked repeatedly. Be brief, say much in a few words, act like a man who knows, yet holds his tongue. Among the great, do not act as their equal, and when another is speaking, do little talking. Lightning flashes before thunder, and favor goes before a modest man. Rise to leave in good time, and do not lag behind. Run home, and do not be remiss. Amuse yourself there, and do what you intend, but do not sin by speaking arrogantly. And from these things bless him who created you and satisfies you with his good things. Wise and sinful men. The man who fears the Lord will receive instruction, and those who rise early will find his approval. He who seeks the law will be filled with it, but the hypocrite will be made to stumble by it. Those who fear the Lord will discover judgment, and like the light they will kindle righteous deeds. A sinful man will turn aside correction and find a rationalization according to his will. A man of counsel will not neglect thought, but a strange and arrogant man does not tremble in fear. Do nothing without counsel, and when you have acted, do not regret it. And do not walk a path filled with obstacles, and do not trip over stony ground. Do not put your trust in an unexplored way, and keep watch because of your children. In every work entrust your soul in the Lord, for this is the keeping of the commandments. He who believes in the law heeds the commandments, and he who trusts in the Lord will not suffer loss. Chapter 33. Evil will not befall a man who fears the Lord, but in trial he will deliver him again and again. A wise man will not hate the law, but he who pretends to keep it is like a ship in a storm. A man of understanding will trust in the law, and to him the law is trustworthy because it is a divine revelation. Prepare what to say, and thus you will be heard. Draw on your training and make your reply. The heart of a fool resembles a wagon wheel, and his reasoning is like a turning axle. A lusty stallion is like a mocking friend. He impregnates everyone who sits under him. Reflecting on creation. Why is one day better than another, when all the light of the day in a year is from the sun? They were separated by the knowledge of the Lord, and he changed the seasons and feasts. Some days he exalted and sanctified, and some days he made ordinary. All men are from the ground, and from Adam was created from the earth. In the fullness of knowledge the Lord separated them, and changed their paths. Some days he blessed and exalted, and some days he sanctified and drew near to himself. Some days he has cursed and humbled, and removed from their places. All his ways are according to his good pleasure, like clay in a potter's hand. Thus men are in the hands of him who made them, to render to them according to his judgment. Opposites. Good is the opposite of evil, and life is the opposite of death. In the same way, a sinner is the opposite of a godly man. Look therefore upon all the works of the Most High. They also come in pairs, one the opposite of the other. I kept the last watch like one gleaning after the harvest, but by the blessing of the Lord I arrived in time, and like a grape picker I filled my winepress. Observe well that I did not labor for myself alone, but for all who seek instruction. Careful leadership. Hear me, you leaders of the people, and you rulers of the assembly, listen to me. Do not give authority over yourself while you are still living, or your son or your wife, nor to your brother or a friend. And do not give your property to another, lest you change your mind and need to beg for it while you are still living, alive, and there is breath in you. Do not change places with anyone, for it is better that your children should ask from you than that you should look to the hands of your sons. Be outstanding in all your works, and do not put a blemish on your reputation. On the day when the days of your life are fulfilled, at the time of your deeds, distribute the inheritance. Relating to servants. Fodder, the rod, and the burden are for a donkey, and bread, instruction, and work are for a servant. Make a servant work, and you will find rest. Leave his hands idle, and he will seek freedom. Yoke and strap will bend the neck, and racks and tortures are for an evil servant. Put him to work, that he may not be idle, for idleness teaches much evil. Set him to the work appropriate for him, and if he is not obedient, put heavy chains on his feet. And do not act superior towards any flesh, and do nothing without judgment. If you own a servant, let him be as yourself, for with your blood you bought him. If you own a servant, treat him as a brother, for you will need him as your own soul. If you treat him badly, and he runs away, which way will you go to look for him? Chapter 24, Discerning Dreams. Vain hope and lying belong to a man without understanding, and dreams give wing to senseless men. Like him who grasps after shadows and chases the wind, so is he who puts attention to dreams. The vision of dreams is this against that, the likeness of a face opposite a face. What will be cleansed from an unclean thing, and what will be true from a false thing? Divinations, omens, and dreams are worthless, and like a woman in the pains of childbirth, the heart becomes visible. Unless visions are sent from the Most High in a visitation, do not give your heart to them, for dreams have deceived many, and those who hope in them have fallen away. Without such lying, the law will be fulfilled, and wisdom is perfected in the mouth of the faithful. Benefits of travel. A man who has traveled about knows many things, and a man with much experience will speak with understanding. A man who has not been tested knows little, but he who has traveled about increases his astuteness. I have seen many things in my travels, and my understanding is more than I can express in words. I have frequently been in danger of death, but I have been saved because of these experiences. The blessings of God. The spirit of those who fear the Lord will live, for their hope is in him who saves them. He who fears the Lord will fear nothing, and he will not be cowardly, for the Lord is his hope. Blessing is the soul of a man who fears the Lord. To whom does he look? And who is his support? The eyes of the Lord are upon those who love him. He is a powerful protection and a strong support, a shelter from the burning heat, a shelter from the noonday sun, a guard from stumbling, and help from a fall. He raises up the soul and gives light to the eyes. He gives healing, life, and blessing. Unacceptable offerings. If a man sacrifices by means of wrongdoing, the offering is a mockery, and the gifts of the lawless are not accepted. The Most High is not pleased with the offerings of the ungodly, and a man does not atone for his sins with a multitude of sacrifices. He who offers a sacrifice on the property of the poor is like one who kills a son in the sight of his father. The bread of the needy is the life of the poor. He who deprives them of it is a man of bloodshed. Whoever takes away his neighbor's livelihood murders him, and whoever deprives a hired worker of his wages sheds his blood. If one builds up while another tears down, what do they profit among that than toil? What do they profit other than toil? If one prays while another curses, whose voice will the Lord hear? If a man washes himself after touching a corpse, then touches it again, what does he profit by his washing? So it is with a man who fasts over his sins, and goes and does the same sins all over again. Who will hear his prayer? Or what does his humbling profit him? Chapter 35, Acceptable Offerings. The man who keeps the law will abound in offerings. He who heeds the commandments sacrifices a peace offering. He who returns a kindness offers fine wheat flour, but he who does alms sacrifices a praise offering. To forsake evil is pleasing to the Lord, and to forsake wrongdoing is atonement. Do not appear before the Lord empty-handed, for all these offerings are made because of the commandment. A righteous offering anoints the altar, and its fragrance rises before the Most High. The sacrifice of a righteous man is acceptable, and his remembrance shall not be forgotten. Glorify the Lord with your generosity, and do not reduce the first fruits of your hands. In every gift let your face be cheerful, and sanctify your tithe with gladness. Give to the Most High as he has given to you, and give to him with generosity according to your windfall. For the Lord is he who repays, and he will repay you sevenfold. God's justice and mercy. Do not bribe him, for he will not accept it. Do not offer an unrighteous sacrifice, for the Lord is a judge, and there is no partiality with him. He will not show partiality to a poor man, but he will hear the petition of him who is wronged. He will not overlook the supplication of an orphan, nor a widow when she pours out her story. Do not the tears of the widow run down her cheeks, as she cries against him who calls them? He whose service is pleasing to the Lord will be accepted by him, and his prayer will reach to the clouds. The prayer of a humble man passes through the clouds, and he will not be comforted until it reaches the Lord. And he will not withdraw it until the Most High visits him, provides justice for the righteous, and executes judgment, so the Lord will not delay, neither will he be slow to help them, until he crushes the loins of the unmerciful and repays vengeance upon the nations, until he destroys the multitude of the insolent, and crushes the scepter of the unrighteous, until he renders a man according to his practices, and the works of men according to their devices, until he judges the cause of his people, and brings them joy with his mercy. Mercy is beautiful in the time of affliction, like rain in the time of drought. Chapter 36, a prayer for Israel. Have mercy on us, O Lord, the God of all, and look upon us. Put your fear in all the nations. Raise your hand against foreign nations, and let them see your power. As in us you have been sanctified before them, so in them you may be made great before us. Let them know you, as we also have known you, for there is no God but you, O Lord. Renew your signs and work fresh wonders. Glorify your hand and your right arm. Stir up your anger and pour out your wrath. Drive away the adversary and destroy the enemy. Hasten the time and remember your oath, and let people declare your mighty works. Let him who survives be devoured in your fiery wrath, and may those who harm your people meet destruction. Crush the heads of the rulers of the enemies who say, there is no one but us. Gather together all the tribes of Jacob and grant them their inheritance as from the beginning. Have mercy upon your people called by your name, O Lord, upon Israel, whom you have likened to your firstborn son. Have pity on the city of your sanctuary, Jerusalem, the place of your rest. Fill Zion with the celebration of your divine virtue, and your people with your glory. Give testimony to what you created in the beginning, and raise up the prophecies spoken in your name. Reward those who wait for you, and let your prophets be found trustworthy. Hear, O Lord, the prayer of your suppliants, according to the blessing of Aaron over your people, and all on earth will know that you are the Lord, the God of ages. Using discernment. The stomach eats any kind of food, but some food is better than others. As the palate tastes the flavor of game, so an understanding heart detects lying words. A crooked heart will cause grief, but a man with great experience will pay him back. A woman will accept any son, but one daughter is better than another. A beautiful woman gladdens a man's face and surpasses his every desire. If there is mercy and gladness on her tongue, her husband is not like other men. He who gains a wife gets his best possession, a helper like himself and a pillar of support. Where there is no wall, the property will be plundered, and where a man has no wife, he will wander around and groan. Who will trust a well-equipped thief who skips from city to city? Who will trust a man who has no home, and lodges wherever night overtakes him? Chapter 37, Choosing Companions. Every friend will say, I too am your friend, but sometimes a friend is a friend in name only. Is it not a grief to the death when a companion or friend turns to hatred? O evil reasoning, why were you involved? To cover the land with deceit? A companion delights in the gladness of a friend, but in time of affliction he will be against him. A companion labors to help a friend for his stomach's sake, and in a time of battle he will take up the shield. Do not forget a friend in your soul, and do not be unmindful of him with your wealth. Choosing counselors. Every counselor extols his own counsel, and some offer advice to their own interests. Protect yourself from a counselor and know beforehand what is his interest, for he will take thought for himself, lest he cast his vote against you, and say to you, your path is good, then he will stand aside to see what will happen to you. Do not consult with the man who looks at you suspiciously, and hide your counsel from those who envy you. Also do not consult with a woman about her rival, nor with a coward about battle, nor with a merchant about exchange, nor with a buyer about selling, nor with a slanderer about gratitude, nor with an unmerciful man about generosity, nor with an idler about any work, nor with a seasonal hired hand about completing his work, nor with a lazy servant about a big job. Pay no attention to these in any counsel. Instead, persevere with a godly man who you know keeps the commandments, whose soul accords with your soul, and will share in your suffering if you fall. Stand firm on the counsel of your heart, for no one is more faithful to you than it. For a man's soul sometimes tells him more than 7 watchmen sitting high on a watchtower. And in all matters pray to the Most High, that he may direct your way in truth. Wisdom false and true. A word is the beginning of every work, and counsel comes before every action. 4 types of things appear as a clue to a change of heart: good and evil, life and death, and it is the tongue that continually rules them. There is an astute man who is a teacher of many, but is useless to his own soul. A man who devises words craftily will be hated. This man will go hungry, for grace was not given to him from the Lord, because he is destitute of all wisdom. There is a man wise in his own soul, and the fruits of his understanding are trustworthy when he speaks. A wise man will instruct his own people, and the fruits of his understanding are trustworthy. A wise man shall be filled with blessing, and all who see him will consider him blessed. The life of a man is numbered by days, but the days of Israel are without number. The wise man will inherit trust among his people, and his name will live forever. Gluttony. My son, while you are still living, test your soul, and see what is bad for it, and do not give it into that. For not everything is profitable for everyone, and not every soul enjoys everything. Do not be gluttonous for every dainty food, and do not give yourself over to food, for overeating will bring sickness, and gluttony will lead to nausea. Many have died because of gluttony, but the careful man will prolong his life. Chapter 38. Honoring the physician. Honor the physician with the honor due him, and also according to your need of him, for the Lord created him. Healing comes from the Most High, and he will receive a gift from the King. The physician's skill will lift up his head, and he shall be admired in the presence of the great. The Lord created medicines from the earth, and a sensible man will not loathe them. Is not water made sweet by wood, that its strength might be known? And he gave skill to men, that he might be glorified in his wonders. By them he heals and takes away pain. A druggist making a compound of them, God's works are never finished. And fruit from health is upon the face of the earth. And from him health is upon the face of the earth. My son, do not be negligent when you are sick, but pray to the Lord, and he will heal you. Depart from transgression, and direct your hands aright, and cleanse your heart from every sin. Offer a sweet-smelling sacrifice and memorial for the finest sweet flour, and pour oil on your offerings as if you are soon to die. And keep in touch with your physician, for the Lord created him. Do not let him leave you, for you need him. There is a time when success is also in their hands, for they will pray to the Lord to give them success in bringing relief and healing, for the sake of preserving your life. He who sins before the one who made him, may he fall into the hands of a physician. Mourning and departed. My son, let your tears fall for the dead, and as one suffering grievously, begin the lament. With the honor due him, wrap his body, and take care of his burial. Weep bitterly and lament fervently. Do your mourning according to what he deserves for a day or two, to avoid slander. Then be comforted for your grief, for grief is a cause of death, and a grief-stricken heart will snap your strength. Grief also abides in misery, and the life of a poor man weighs down his heart. Do not give your heart to grief. Drive it away, remembering the end of life. Do not forget, for there is no coming back, and you cannot help the dead man by grieving, but will only injure yourself. Remember my end, since yours is also like it. Mine yesterday, yours today. When the dead man is at rest, let his remembrance cease, and be comforted for him in the exodus of his spirit. Gratitude for laborers. The wisdom of a scribe depends on his opportunity for quiet, for when he has little business, he will be made wise. How will he who handles the plough be made wise? For he boasts in the shaft of the goad, and he drives oxen and is occupied with their labors. And his talk is about young bulls, and his heart is set on plowing furrows, and he keeps watch to feed his heifers. The same is true for every craftsman and architect, who works by night as well as by day. Those who engrave the signets of seals, he is diligent to make great variety. His heart set on creating a lifelike image, and keeping watch to perfect his work. So too is a blacksmith sitting near the anvil, examining closely his iron works, the breath of the fire melting his flesh. As he struggles with the heat of the furnace, he inclines his ear to the sound of the hammer, and his eyes are focused on the likeness of the object. He sets his heart on the completion of his works and keeps watch to perfect its detail. The potter as well, sitting by his work and turning the potter's wheel with his feet, he is always careful about the quality of his work, and also the quality of his output. With his arm he molds the clay, and with his feet he curves it. His heart is set on finishing the glazing, and he is careful to clean the furnace. All these trust in their hands, and each is skillful in his work. Without them a city will not be livable, nor will anyone sojourn or live there. Yet they will not be sought out for the council of the people, and they will not gain prominence in the assembly. They do not sit in the judge's seat, nor will they understand the sentence of judgment. They cannot give instruction in discipline or judgment, nor will they be found using parables, but they will keep the fabric of the world stable, and their power in the practice of their craft. Chapter 39, Students of God's Word. How different is the man who devotes himself to the study of the law of the Most High. He will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients and be occupied with their prophecies. He will preserve the discourse of notable men and penetrate the subtleties of parables. He will seek out the hidden meaning of proverbs and be engaged in the riddles of parables. He will serve in the midst of great men and will appear before rulers. He will travel through the land of foreign nations and test the good and evil among men. He will give his heart to rising early before the Lord who created him, and will make supplication to the Most High. He will open his mouth in prayer and make supplication for his sins. If the great Lord wills, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding. He will pour forth words of his wisdom, and in prayer he will give thanks to the Lord. He will direct his counsel in knowledge aright, and he will reflect on his hidden things. And he will reveal instruction in his teaching, and boast in the law of the Lord's covenant. Many will praise his understanding, and it will never be blotted out. His memory will not disappear, and his name will live through all generations. Nations will proclaim his wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim his praise. If he lives long, he will leave a name greater than 1,000, and if he goes to his rest, his work is completed. Praise for God's works. I have yet more to tell, and I will describe it in detail, for I am filled like a full moon. So hear me, O holy sons, and bud forth like a rose, springing up by a running stream like frankincense, emit a sweet fragrance, and blossom forth like a lily, sent forth a fragrance, and sing a hymn of praise. Bless the Lord in all his works. Ascribe majesty to his name, and give thanks to him in praise, with songs on your lips and with lyres. And thus you shall say in thanksgiving, all things are the works of the Lord, for they are exceedingly good. And every command shall be in his appointed time. No one can say, what is this, why is that? For every question will be answered in his appointed time. By his word the waters stood as a heap, and the reservoirs of the waters by the word of his mouth. By his command all his good pleasure is done, and no one will dismiss his salvation. The works of all flesh are before him, and nothing can be hidden from his eyes. From age to age he looks upon them, and nothing is marvelous to him. No one can say, what is this, why is that? For all these things were created for their uses. His blessing covers the dry land like a river, and drenches it like a flood. As he turns fresh water into salt, so the heathen will inherit his wrath. As his ways are straight to the holy, so they are an occasion of stumbling to the lawless. As from the beginning good things were created for the good, so evil things for sinners. The basic needs of a man's life are water, fire, iron, salt, and wheat flour, and milk, honey, and the blood of the grape, olive oil, and clothing. As all these things are good for the godly, so they turn into evil for sinners. There are spirits created for vengeance, and in his anger they strengthen their scourges. In the time of consummation they will pour out their might, and appease the wrath of him who made them. Fire, hail, famine, and death, all these things are created for vengeance. The teeth of wild animals, scorpions, and snakes, and the avenging sword that drives the ungodly to destruction. They shall be glad at his commandment, and be prepared for his service on earth. And when their time comes, they will not transgress his word. Therefore, from the beginning I was determined and resolved, and left this in writing. All the works of the Lord are good, and he will supply every need in his hour. No one can say, this is worse than that, for all things will be well pleasing in their time. So now sing praise with all your heart and voice, and bless the name of the Lord. Chapter 40, Life's Afflictions. Hard work was created for every man, and a heavy yoke for the sons of Adam, for the day they come forth from their mother's womb, until the day they return to the mothers of all. The conception of things to come and the day of death trouble their thoughts and cause fear of heart. From the one sitting on a glorious throne to the one humbled on earth in ashes, from the one wearing purple and a crown to the one clothed in burlap, there is anger, envy, trouble, and unrest, and fear of death and fury and strife. When it is time for rest on his bed, his night of sleep alters his knowledge. He gets little or no rest, and afterwards in his sleep, as though on a day of watch, he is troubled by the vision of his heart, like one who escapes from the face of battle. In the exact time of need he awakes, and is amazed there is nothing to fear. With all flesh, from man to animal, and upon sinners 7 times more, there will be death and bloodshed, strife and the sword, distresses and famine and ruin and affliction. All these things were created for the lawless, and because of them the flood came. Whatever comes from the earth returns to the earth, and whatever comes from the waters returns to the sea. The wise and unwise. Every bribe and wrongdoing will be blotted out, but faithfulness shall stand forever. The wealth of the unrighteous will dry up like a river, and sound forth and cease like great thunder in the rain. A generous man will rejoice, but transgressors will come to ruin. The offspring of the ungodly shall not grow branches, for they are unclean roots on a hard rock. Weeds growing by any water or river bank will be plucked out before any grass. Grace is like a paradise in blessing, and almsgiving endures forever. The life of the self-reliant and the worker will be sweet, but he who finds a treasure is better off than both. Having children in building a city establishes a name, but a blameless wife is accounted better than both. Wine and music gladden the heart, but love of wisdom is better than both. The flute and harp give sweet melody, but a pleasant tongue is better than both. The eye will desire grace and beauty, but the green shoots of grain are better than both. A friend and companion meet at an appointed time, but a wife meeting her husband is better than both. Brothers and help are for a time of affliction, but almsgiving rescues better than both. Gold and silver will make the foot secure, but counsel is esteemed more valuable than both. Wealth and strength will lift up the heart, but the fear of the Lord is better than both. There is no loss in the fear of the Lord, and with it there is no need to seek for help. The fear of the Lord is like a paradise of blessing, and covers a man better than any glory. My child, did not live the life of a beggar, for it is better to die than to beg. When a man looks at another's table, he is living an irrational life, for he will pollute his soul with another's food. But a rational and educated man will guard himself against that. Begging will be sweet in the mouth of a shameless man, but in his belly a fire will be kindled. Chapter 41, Dealing with Death. O death, how bitter is the memory of you, to a man at peace with his possessions, to a man with distractions and prosperous in everything, and still strong enough to enjoy his food. O death, your judgment is good, to the man in need and failing in strength, in his extreme old age, distracted by everything, and stubborn and short on patience. Do not fear the judgment of death. Remember those before you and after you. This is the judgment from the Lord to all flesh. How can you reject the good? pleasure of the Most High. Whether you live 10 or 100 or 1,000 years, there is in Hades no injury into your life. The children of sinners are loathsome children, and they frequent the dwellings of the ungodly. The inheritance of the children of sinners will perish, and with their seed the disgrace will continue. The children will blame their godless father, for because of him they will be denounced. Woe to you, the ungodly men, who forsake the law of God Most High, and when you are born you will be born to a curse, and when you die your portion will be a curse. Whatever is from the earth shall return to the earth, so the ungodly go from a curse to destruction. The mourning of men is about their bodies, but the evil name of sinners will be blotted out. Have regard for your name, for it will remain with you longer than 1,000 great chests of gold. The days of a good life are numbered, but a good name will remain forever. Observe instruction and live in peace, my children. But hidden wisdom and invisible treasure, what benefit are these? A man who hides his foolishness is better than a man who hides his wisdom. Shame, property, and improper. Shame, proper and improper. Therefore, be ashamed on the basis of my word, for it is not good to protect every kind of shame, and not everything is highly esteemed by all with confidence. Be ashamed of fornication before father or mother, of a lie before your leader or ruler, of an offense before a judge or ruler, of lawlessness before the assembly of the people, of wrongdoing before your partner or friend, of theft in the place where you dwell. Be ashamed before the truth of God and his covenant, and of bad manners at the table, of contemptuous behavior in receiving any giving, of silence before those who greet you, of looking at a prostitute, of rejecting the appeal of a kinsman, of carrying off someone's portion of gift, and of staring at another man's wife, of meddling with his maidservant, and do not come near her bed. Be ashamed of insulting words before friends, and do not be insulted after making a gift. Of repenting and telling what you hear and revealing secrets, so be truly modest and find favor before every man. Chapter 42. Do not be ashamed of the following things, and do not let partiality lead you to sin, of the law and covenant of the Most High, and of a judgment to acquit an ungodly man, of keeping accounts with a partner or a traveling companion, and of dividing inheritance amongst friends, of accurate scales and balances and the acquisition of much or little, of profit from business with merchants, and of much discipline of children, and of making the sides of an evil servant bleed. Where there is an evil wife, a seal is good, and where there are many hands, lock things up. Whatever you deliver, do it by number or weight, and put in writing everything you give or receive. Do not be ashamed of the instructing of the unwise and foolish, or of the extremely old man who passes judgment on the young. Then you will be truly instructed, and approved before all men. Fathers and daughters. A daughter keeps her father secretly wakeful, for worry over her takes away his sleep. Lest in her youth she passes the time to marry, and lest in her marriage she be hated. In her virginity lest she be defiled, or become pregnant in her father's house, having a husband lest she be unfaithful, or though married lest she be childless. Keep a strict watch over a headstrong daughter, lest she make you a laughingstock to your enemies, a source of gossip in the city, and notorious among the people, and a disgrace to you before the great multitude. Do not look upon anyone for beauty, and do not sit in the midst of women, for a moth comes out of garments, and the evil of a woman comes from a woman. The evil of a man is better than a woman who does what is good, yet brings shame and disgrace. God's glorious works. I shall now remember the works of the Lord, and by the words of the Lord I shall describe his works that I see. The sun gives light and looks down on everything, and its work is full of the Lord's glory. The Lord did not enable his saints to describe all his wonders, which the Lord Almighty established, that the universe might be established in his glory. He traced out the abyss and the human heart, and understands their craftiness, for the Most High possesses all knowledge, and sees to the signs of an age. He proclaims that what has been and what shall be, and reveals the footsteps of hidden things. That no thought escapes him, not even one word is hidden from him. He has adorned the mighty works of his wisdom, for he is from everlasting to everlasting. Nothing can be added or taken away, and he needs no one to be his counselor. How precious are all his works, and how sparkling to behold! All these things live and endure forever, every need, and all are obedient. All things are in pairs, one opposite the other, and he made nothing incomplete. One thing strengthens the good of another, and who can have enough of beholding his glory? Chapter 43. The Sun, Moon, and Stars. The exaltation of the heavenly heights is a firmament of purity, the form of heaven with the visions of glory. The sun, when it appears, making proclamation as it goes forth, is a wonderful instrument, a work of the Most High. At noon it dries up the land, and who can endure its burning heat? A man kindling a furnace works in burning heat, but the sun burns the mountains 3 times as much. Breathing out fiery streams and sending forth shining beams, it dims the eyes. Great is the Lord who made it, and by his command it hastens its journey. He also made the moon to serve in its season, as a declaration of times and an everlasting sign. From the moon comes the sign of a feast, a light that wanes as it completes its course. The month is named according to the moon, being increased wondrously in its phases, a vessel encamped on high, shining in the firmament of heaven. The glory of the stars is the beauty of heaven, a world shining in the high place of the Lord. But the words of the Holy One, by the words of the Holy One they stand according to his judgment, and do not grow weary in their watches. The majestic creation. Behold the rainbow, and bless him who made it. Exceedingly beautiful in its brightness, it circles heaven with its glorious arc, and the hands of the Most High laid out its course. By his command he makes the snow to fall, and speeds the lightning by his judgment. Therefore the storehouses are opened, and the clouds fly forth like birds. By his majesty he condenses the clouds, and the hailstones break into pieces. At his appearing the mountains are shaken, and by his will the south wind blows. The voice of his thunder makes the earth tremble, and so do the hurricane from the north and the whirlwind as well. He sprinkles the snow like birds flying down, and its descent is like grasshoppers alighting. The eye marvels at the beauty of its whiteness, and the heart is astonished at its raining down. He pours the hoarfrost like salt upon the earth, and when it freezes it becomes like pointed horns. A cold north wind blows, and ice freezes on the water, and forms on every pool of water, and clothes the water like armor. He consumes the mountains and burns up the desert, and withers the green herbage like fire. A mist quickly heals it all, and falling dew brings refreshment from the heat. By his reasoning he quieted the great deep, and planted islands in it. Those who sail the sea recount its dangers, and we are amazed at the reports coming to our ears, for therein are the incredible and wondrous works, a diversity of many living things, and a created order of huge sea creatures. Because of him, his messenger has a prosperous journey, and by his word all things are held together. How do we praise him? We will say many things and not reach the end, but the sum of our words is seen in this. He is the all. How shall we ever be able to adequately praise him? For he is greater than all his works. Fearful is the Lord, and exceedingly great, and wondrous is his power. Glorify the Lord and exalt him as much as you are able, for he will surpass even that. And when you exalt him, put forth all your strength, and do not grow weary, for you cannot exalt him enough. Who has seen him and will describe him? Who can say, and who can magnify him as he truly is? There are yet many hidden things greater than these, for we have seen but few of his works. For the Lord made all things and gives wisdom to the godly. Chapter 44, in praise of honored men. Let us now praise honored men and our fathers. The Lord established his great glory and majesty from the beginning through them. They were those who ruled in their kingdoms, and were men renowned for their power, giving counsel through their understanding and proclaiming prophecies. They were leaders of the people by their counsels and understanding of learning for the people. Wise in their words of instruction, they were composers of music, and they set forth verse in writing. Wealthy men with great resources, living in peace in their dwelling places, all these were honored in their generations, and in their days were a source of boasting. There were those who left behind a name, that men might declare their praises. There were also those whom no one remembers, who perished as if they never existed, and they died as if they had not been born, and so have their children after them. Nevertheless, these were men of mercy, whose righteousness lived with God. The good they did remains with their seed, and their inheritance with their children's children. Their seed stands with the covenants, and their children as well for their sake. Their seed shall remain forever, and their glory will not be blotted out. Their bodies were buried in peace, and their names live to all generations. People will tell of their wisdom, and the assembly will proclaim their praise. Enoch. Enoch pleased the Lord and was translated as an example of repentance for all generations. Noah. Noah was found perfect and was righteous in the time of wrath, in which he was rescued in exchange. Therefore, a remnant was left on the earth when the flood came. Everlasting covenants were made with him, that all flesh would not be wiped away again by a flood. Abraham and his sons. Abraham was a great father of many nations, and no one is found like him in glory. He kept the law of the Most High, who made a covenant with him. He established a covenant in his flesh, and was found faithful in testing. Therefore he affirmed by an oath that nations would be blessed in his seed. He would multiply him like dust of the earth, and exalt his seed like the stars in number, and cause him to inherit from sea unto sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. And with Isaac he established the same assurance for the sake of Abraham his father, a blessing for all men, and the covenant he made rest upon the head of Jacob. He acknowledged him with his blessings and gave him an inheritance. Then he divided his portions amongst 12 tribes. Chapter 45, Moses. He brought from him a man of mercy, who found favor in the eyes of all flesh, beloved by God and man, Moses, whose remembrance is blessed. He made him equal in glory to the saints, and magnified him in the fears of his enemies. With his words he caused signs to cease, and the Lord honored him in the presence of kings. He gave him commands for his people, and showed him his glory. He sanctified him because of his faithfulness and gentleness, and chose him out of all flesh. He caused him to hear his voice, and led him into the darkness, and gave him the commandments face to face, the law of life and knowledge, to teach Jacob his covenant and his judgments to Israel. Aaron. He exalted Aaron, a holy man like himself, his brother from the tribe of Levi, and established an everlasting covenant with him. He gave him the priesthood of the people, and blessed him with the orderly behavior, and covered him with adornment of glory. He clothed him with the consummation of boasting, and confirmed him with instruments of strength, the linen breeches, the long robe, and the ephod, and he encircled him with tassels, with many golden bells all around, to sound their ring at his steps, making their ringing a sound as he walked in the temple, a reminder for the children of his people, with a holy garment, with gold and hyacinth, and purple cloth and embroidered work, with the oracle of judgment, the Urim and Thummim, with woven scarlet by the work of the artisan, with entwined scarlet the work of the skilled craftsman, with precious stones engraved like a seal, in a setting of gold in a cut stone, a jeweler's work, with a memorial in engraving letters, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. He set a golden crown over the priestly turban, a figure of the holy seal, a distinction of honor, the work of an expert, things desirable to the eyes richly adorned. There was never so much beauty before his time. No outsider was ever clothed in these garments, only his sons and his offspring perpetually. His sacrifices shall be a whole burnt offering, perpetually twice every day. Moses ordained him and anointed him with holy oil, and was an eternal covenant for him and for his seed forever, to minister to the Lord and serve as priest, to bless his people in his name. He chose him from all the living to offer sacrifices to the Lord, incense and sweet-smelling offerings as a remembrance, to make atonement for your people. He gave him authority with his commandments and covenants and judgments, to teach Jacob the testimonies and to enlighten Israel in his law. Outsiders conspired against him and were jealous of him in the desert. The men who gathered with Dothan and Abiram, and even the company of Korah with anger and wrath. The Lord saw and was not pleased, and they were brought to an end by the anger of his wrath. He performed wonders against them, to consume them in his flaming fire. He also brought Aaron glory and gave him an inheritance. He divided the firstfruits for him. He prepared bread in abundance from the firstfruits, for they will eat the sacrifices to the Lord, which he gave to him, to his seed, but in the land of the people he will have no inheritance. And there is no portion for him among the people, for the Lord himself is his portion and his inheritance. Phinehas. Then Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, is a third in glory, when he showed zeal in the fear of the Lord, and he stood fast when the people turned away, but by the goodness of the eagerness of his soul he made atonement for Israel. Therefore he established a covenant of peace with him, to be in charge of the sanctuary, the leader of his people, that the priesthood might be with him and his seed forever. A covenant was also established with David, the son of Jesse from the tribe of Judah. The heritage of the king is from son to son only, and the heritage of Aaron is for his seed. May he give you wisdom in your heart to judge his people in righteousness, that their good things might not disappear, and their glory throughout their generations. Chapter 46, Joshua and Caleb. Mighty in battle was Joshua the son of Nun, the successor of Moses in prophecies. He became, in accordance with his name, a great savior of God's chosen ones, to punish the enemies who rose up against them, that he might give Israel its inheritance. How glorious he was when he lifted up his hands and stretched out his sword against the cities, who stood so firm before him, for he led the wars of the Lord. Was not the sun held back by his hand, and one day became as two? He called upon the Most High, the Lord, when enemies oppressed him from all sides. Then the great Lord answered him. With hailstones of mighty power he shattered the nations with war, and at the descent of Ben-Horon he destroyed his opponents, so the nations might know his full armor, that he fought his battle in the sight of the Lord, for indeed he followed behind the Lord. Even in the days of Moses he showed mercy. He and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, they withstood the assembly to prevent the people from sinning and to stop their evil murmuring. Indeed, these two alone were preserved, from the 600,000 on foot, to lead them into an inheritance, into a land flowing with milk and honey. The Lord gave Caleb strength and remained with him until old age, for he went up to the hill country, and his seed took it as an inheritance, so all the children of Israel might know that it is good to follow the Lord. The judges. The judges also, each by his name, those whose heart did not fall into idolatry, and whoever did not turn away from the Lord. May their memory be blessed. May their bones revive from their place, and may the name of those honored live again in their sons. Samuel. The prophet of the Lord Samuel, beloved by his Lord, established a kingdom and anointed rulers for his people. He judged the assembly by the law of the Lord, and the Lord watched over Jacob. By his faithfulness he proved to be a true prophet. By his words he was known to be faithful in vision. Thus he called upon the Lord, the mighty one, when enemies troubled him on every side, and when he offered a young lamb, when the Lord thundered from heaven and with a great sound made his voice heard. He destroyed the leaders of the Tyrians and all the rulers of the Philistines, and before the time of his sleep in perpetuity, Samuel called men to witness before the Lord and his anointed. I have not taken any man's possessions, even to my sandals. Indeed, no man brought any charges against him. Even after he fell asleep, he prophesied and showed the king his end, and raised up his voice out of the earth with a prophecy to wipe away the lawlessness of the people. Chapter 47. Nathan and David. And after this Nathan rose up to prophesy in the days of David. As the fat was divided from the peace offering, so David was separated from the sons of Israel. He played with lions as with young goats, and with bears as with lambs of sheep. He did not slay a giant in his youth. Did he not slay a giant in his youth, and remove the disgrace from the people, when he took in his hand a stone for a sling, and struck down the arrogance of Goliath? For he called upon the Lord Most High, and strength was given to his right hand, to defeat the mighty man in battle, to exalt the power of his people. For his 10,000 they glorified him, and praised him for the blessing of the Lord, when they brought him a diadem of glory. For he destroyed his enemies all around, reducing to nothing the enemies, the Philistines, and crushing their power to this very day. In his every work he gave thanks with a word of praise to the Holy One, the Most High. And he sang a hymn with all his heart, and loved his Maker. He placed psalm singers before the altar to make sweet melody with their voices. He gave dignity to the feasts, and set in order the appointed times throughout the year, for them to praise his holy name, and for the sanctuary to resound from early morning. The Lord took away his sins, exalted his power forever, and gave him a covenant of kings and a throne of glory in Israel. Solomon and his successors. After him there arose his wise son, who lodged in a broad space because of him, for Solomon reigned in days of peace, to whom God gave rest on every side, that he might establish a house for his name and prepare a sanctuary to last forever. How wise you were in your youth, and filled with understanding like a river. Your soul covered the earth, and you were filled with the parables of riddles. Your name was known to islands far away, and you were loved for your peace and for your songs, proverbs, and parables. Nations marveled at you because of your interpretations in the name of the Lord God, who is called the God of Israel. You collected gold like tin and multiplied silver like lead. But you laid down beside women, and were enslaved by your body. You brought disgrace to your honor and defiled your seed, so as to bring your wrath upon your children, and they were pierced by your lack of good sense. Thus one kingdom became two, and out of Ephraim there began a disobedient kingdom. But the Lord did not abandon his mercy, nor corrupt any of his words. Neither did he wipe away the descendants of his chosen one, nor did he remove the seed of the one who loved him. He gave a remnant to Jacob, and to David a root from his stock. When Solomon rested with his fathers, he left behind him one of his sons, lacking in good sense and understanding, Rehoboam, who turned away from the people by his counsel. There was also Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin, and led Ephraim on the road to sin. Then their sins were multiplied exceedingly, so as to remove them from their land. They sought every wickedness until punishment came upon them. Chapter 48, Elijah. Then Elijah the prophet rose up like fire, and his word burned like a lamp. He brought a famine upon them, and in his zeal he reduced them in number. By the word of the Lord he shut up heaven, and also 3 times he brought down fire. So by your wonders you were honored, O Elijah, and who can boast like you? You raised the dead from death, and from Hades by the word of the Most High. You brought down kings of destruction, and from their bed those who had been honored. You heard rebuke at Sinai, and at Horeb the judgments of punishment. You anointed kings for retribution, and prophets to serve after you. You were taken up in a fiery whirlwind, in a chariot of flaming horses. It is written that you will come at the proper time with rebukes, to calm the wrath of God before it breaks forth in fury, to turn the heart of the fathers to the son, and to resort to the tribes of Jacob. Blessed are those who saw you and who fell asleep with love, for indeed we will surely live. 48, Elijah. Again, we're continuing chapter 48. Elisha, the disciple of Elijah. Elijah was covered in the whirlwind, and Elisha was filled with his spirit. And in his days he trembled before no ruler, and no one oppressed him. No word could overtake him. And after death his body prophesied, and in his life he did wonders. So even in death his works were amazed. For all these things the people did not repent, nor did they turn away from their sins until their land was plundered. Then they were scattered all over the earth, but a people few in number were left, and a ruler in the house of David. Some of them did what was virtuous, but some multiplied sin. Hezekiah and Isaiah. Hezekiah fortified his city and brought water into its midst. He dug through the hard rock with iron and constructed cisterns for the water. In his days Sennacherib came up and sent out the Rashshakeh, and he retreated. Then he lifted up his hand against Zion and boasted in his arrogance. So their hearts and hands were shaken, and they suffered pain like women giving birth. Then they called upon the merciful Lord, stretching out their hands towards him. Thus the Holy One quickly heard them from heaven, and rescued them by the hands of Isaiah. He struck the camp of the Assyrians, and his angel destroyed them. For Hezekiah did what was pleasing to the Lord, and grew strong in the ways of David his father, which Isaiah the prophet commanded, and one great and faithful in his vision. In the days the sun moved backwards, and lengthened the day of the life of the king. With a great spirit he saw the last things, and encouraged those who mourned in Zion. He showed what was to come to the end of time, and the hidden things before they come to pass. Chapter 49, Josiah and Jeremiah. The remembrance of Josiah is like the composition of incense, preparation by the work of the perfumer. In every mouth it is sweet like honey, and like the music in a banquet with wine. He led in the conversion of the people, and he removed the abomination of lawlessness. He directed his heart to the Lord, and in days of lawlessness he strengthened godliness. Except for David, Hezekiah, and Josiah, all offended continually, for they forsook the law of the Most High. The kings of Judah failed, for they gave their power to others and their glory to a foreign nation. They set fire to the chosen city of the sanctuary and desolated her streets, according to the word of Jeremiah, for they did him evil. He who was sanctified as a prophet was while still inside his mother, to root out, to afflict, and to destroy, and likewise to build and to plant. Ezekiel and the 12 prophets. Ezekiel himself saw a vision of glory, which the Lord showed him on a chariot of cherubim. For he remembered his enemies with a thunderstorm, and did good to those who directed their ways aright. May he indeed revive the bones of the 12 prophets from their place, for they encouraged the people of Jacob, and redeemed them with steadfast hope. Zerubbabel, Jeshua, and Nehemiah. How shall we magnify Zerubbabel? He was surely like a seal upon the right hand, and so was Jeshua the son of Jozadak, who in their days built the temple and raised up the holy temple to the Lord, one prepared unto eternal glory. And there is a lasting memory of Nehemiah, who raised for us the walls that had fallen, and he established gates and locks, and raised against our home sites. Others of honor. No one like Enoch was created upon the earth, for he himself was taken up from the earth. Neither has a man like Joseph been born, the leader of his brothers and the support of his people, and they watched over his bones. Shem and Seth were honored among men, and Adam over every living thing in creation. Chapter 50. Simon, son of Onias. There was Simon the high priest, the son of Onias, who repaired the house during his life, and strengthened the temple in his days. He also laid the foundation of the double high wall, and fortified walls surrounding the temple. In his days the cistern for the waters was dug, a reservoir like the sea in circumference. He was concerned about how to save his people from ruin, and he strengthened the city to withstand siege. The Day of Atonement. So was he honored when the people gathered round, for he came out from behind the veil, like the morning star in the midst of the clouds, like the moon when it is full, like the sun shining upon the temple of the Most High, and like the rainbow shining in clouds of glory, like the bloom of the rose in the days of first fruits, like lilies by a spring of water, like a spring of frankincense in the summer, like fire and incense in the censer, like the solid gold vessel decorated with every precious stone, like an olive tree sprouting fresh fruit, and like a cypress tree rising into the clouds, when he took up a robe of honor, and was clothed with the perfection of boasting. In his ascent to the holy altar, he glorified the court of the sanctuary, when he received the portion from the hands of the priests, while standing by the hearth of the altar. A crown of brethren surrounding him, he was like a sapling of cedar in Lebanon, and they encircled him like the trunks of palm trees. All the sons of Aaron in their glory and their offering to the Lord in their hands, before all the assembly of Israel, finishing the services at the altar and arranging the offering to the Most High and Almighty. He stretched out his hand to the cup and poured a libation of the blood of the grapes. He poured it out in the foundation of the altar, a fragrant scent to the King of all, the Most High. Then the sons of Aaron cried out, sounding out the trumpets of hammered work, a great noise to be heard, as a remembrance before the Most High. Then all the people hastened in common, and fell with their faces on the ground to worship their Lord, the Almighty God, the Most High. The singers also praised him with their voices, and their song was sweetened with the variety of sounds. The people also prayed to the Lord Most High in prayer before the Merciful One, until the order of the Lord was ended and they finished his liturgy. Then going down, he lifted up his hands over the entire assembly of the children of Israel, and to boast in his name. Then they bowed down in worship a second time to receive the blessing of the Most High. Praise of honored men concluded, and now bless the Lord God of all, who does great things in every way, who exalts our days from our birth and deals with us according to his mercy. May he give us gladness of heart, and may there be peace in our days. In Israel as in the days of old, may he entrust us with his mercy, and let him redeem us in our days. Author's summary. With 2 nations my soul is angered, and the third is not a nation. Those who reside on the mountain of Samaria, and the Philistines, and the foolish people who dwell in Shechem. Jesus, son of Sirach, son of Eleazar the Jerusalemite, who poured wisdom forth in this book. I inscribed instruction in understanding and knowledge. Blessed is he who will conduct himself by these, for by putting these things in his heart he will be made wise. For if he does these things, he will grow strong in all things, for the light of the Lord is his path. Chapter 51, the Psalms of Thanks. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, O King, and I will praise you as my God and Savior. I will give thanks to your name, for you have been my protector and helper. And you redeem my body from destruction and from the snare of the slanderous tongue, from the lips of those who work falsehood, and before all those who stood you, you are a helper. And before all those who stood by, you were a helper. And you redeemed me, according to your great mercy in your name, from being devoured as one prepared for food, at the hands of those who sought my soul. From many afflictions that I endured, and from suffocation by an encircling fire, and from the midst of a fire I did not start. From the depths of from the belly of Hades, and from the tongue of the unclean, and the word of a liar, the slander of an unrighteous tongue before the king, my soul drew near unto death, and my life was near Hades below. They surrounded me on all sides, and there was no one to help me. I looked for the help of men, but there was none. Then I remembered your mercy, O Lord, and your work which is from old. For you lift up those who wait upon you, and you save them from the hand of their enemies. I sent up my supplication from the earth, and prayed about the instability caused by death. I called upon the Lord, the Father of my Lord, that he might not forsake me in the days of affliction. When I am helpless against the arrogant, I will praise your name continually, and I will sing a hymn with thanksgiving. My prayer was heard, for you saved me from destruction, and rescued me from the time of evil. Therefore I will thank and praise you, and I will bless the name of the Lord. Striving for wisdom. While I was still young, before I went on my travels, I sought wisdom openly in my prayer. Before the temple I prayed about her, and I will search for her to the end of my life. From blossoms to ripening grapes, my heart rejoiced in her. My foot embarked on her righteous path, and from my youth I hunted for her. I inclined my ear a little and received her. I found much instruction for myself, and there was progress for me in her. To him who gives me wisdom I will give glory, for I propose to practice wisdom, and I was zealous for the good, and I was not put to shame. My soul strove earnestly for her, and I examined myself closely in my performance of the law. I stretched out my hands to the heights, and mourned my ignorance of her. I directed my soul to her, and in purification I found her. I acquired a heart for her from the beginning, therefore I was not forsaken. My heart was stirred to search for her, and therefore I gained a good possession. The Lord gave me a tongue as my reward, and I will praise him with it. Draw near to me, untaught ones, and lodge in my school. Why do you say that you are lacking in these things? Yet you let your souls thirst exceedingly. I opened my mouth and said, God, gain wisdom for yourselves without money. Place your neck under her yoke, and let your soul receive her instruction. She is near, that you might find her. See with your own eyes that I labored little, but found much rest for myself. Partake of instruction with a great amount of silver, and gain much gold with it. May your soul be gladdened by his mercy, and may you not be put to shame when you praise him. Do your work before the appointed time, and he will give you your reward in his appointed time. And that's the end of the wisdom of Sirach. We'll continue with the prophets of the Old Testament in the next reading. And now we'll go to chapter 13 of Revelation. The beast against the saints. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast, so they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience of the faith and the faith of the saints. The deception. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns, like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. And he exercised all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and caused the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast be killed. He caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understood calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Now I'll go into the some of the notes of Revelation chapter 13. The beast or monster rising up to the sea, a composition of the 4 beasts of Daniel 7, the epitome of the worldly kingdoms opposed to God and his kingdoms. For John, this was the Roman Empire, a monstrous creature with 10 horns, very powerful, 7 horns, the emperor, 10 crowns on his head, blasphemous name, emperors who assumed titles of divinity such as Lord and God. Son of God, in a parody of 5:12-14, where the sacrificial lamb is enthroned, the beast is given power not to bless the church but to persecute it. One of the heads is a monster, as thought it had been slaughtered to death, the Greek's text, in another parody of the lamb, which is standing even though it had been slain. The deadly wound might refer to the mad emperor Nero's death, inflicted by a slit throat in the manner of a temple sacrifice, for despite his death in AD 68, the emperor lived on, revived under Vespasian. Many believed Nero himself would rise from the dead. Domitian, AD 81-96, the emperor at the time of the writing of Revelation, was considered to be Nero reincarnate because his cruelty surpassed Nero's. Christian tradition has also seen the beast as an image of the Antichrist, of the false Messiah, who presents himself in the last times as God incarnate and is accepted by the world. Since there are many antichrists, there may be more than one application of the beast figure. Chapter 13:4, people worshiping the dragon or Satan. It had been given authority to the beast, who is like the beast. An allusion to Michael the archangel, whose name means who is like God, is also a parody of God, the incomparable. Citizens are awed by the power of the authority of the empire. 42 months is the final period of apocalyptic conflict. It's 1.5 of 7 years, not the final end of things. Thus the nations trample over the holy city for 3.5 years. The 2 witnesses prophesy for 3.5 years. They are left unburied for 3.5 days. The woman is protected in the wilderness for 3.5 years. Nero's prosecution lasted approximately 42 months, 3.5 years. We'll go to which ones now. The beast which rose out of the earth with 2 horns like a lamb, Christ gentle and giving, and which spoke like a dragon, Satan, whose speech is seductive, is worldly religion. Its minister of propaganda, so to speak, mimics John the Baptist and the Holy Spirit, a false prophet, and calling all to worship the first beast, the false divinity. This monster completes the unholy triumvirate: dragon, Satan, false god; beast from the sea, worldly authority, power, false incarnation; and beast from the earth, worldly religions. And to make fire come down from heaven on earth means the deception of sorcery, luring people into making an image of the beast. Statues were often brought to life by sorcery, as what Irenaeus, Clement, Justin, and Eusebius note of sorcerers. Simon Magnus used illusions and occult practices to make idols seem alive. This beast is able to enforce the sentence of death on those who will not worship him. See Nebuchadnezzar's statue in Daniel 3. And we'll continue tomorrow with chapter 14. Thank you for your support, and God bless you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.